You can do a lot in 100 hours. You could learn how to play a musical instrument. You can learn to speak a new language. You can learn how to cook.
Delicious.
And if you really put your mind to it, you can spend 100 hours in a MMO to see if it's actually worth playing or not. And that's exactly what I did with old school RuneScape. I've heard so many people praise this title.
It's an S tier for me, man. It's not even close.
Old school RuneScape's just a fantastically made game.
And some people talk negatively.
Stop playing RuneScape! Oh my god, there are so many better games. Stop playing RuneScape. Stop grinding it, bro.
But overall, people seem to think it's the greatest MMO ever made. Fun fact, I have never played old school RuneScape. Despite being quite the connoisseur of MMOs, old school RuneScape has just never really appealed to me. I don't have the nostalgia of playing it as a kid because back then I played cooler games instead. And as an adult, well, it just doesn't look very appealing. But despite all that, I vowed to play old school RuneScape for 100 hours to see if it was any good. And oh boy, do I have some thoughts and opinions after playing it for so long. But before we begin, let's take a look at some of the rules and goals I've set myself for this 100-hour playthrough.
What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules?
Rule number 1. I must play the game completely solo, which means no one gift me items, no one carry me through dungeons, it's just me, myself and I. And to make sure this rule is enforced, I've opted to go as a Ironman. I'm sure this is a great choice and I won't live to regret it. Rule number 2, no Googling the answer. If I can't figure something out, maybe that speaks volumes about the actual game design. I am, however, allowed to ask people in-game if they know the answer, because it is an MMO after all. Rule number 3, I must participate in some sort of endgame activity. This can include completing the main story questline, participating in PvP, or completing some dungeon boss or raid. And for some added spice, I've decided not to pay for membership. I'm going to see how far I can get on a free account. This rule, however, isn't set in stone, so if things go badly, I can pay for membership. And final rule, I must leave a positive review at the end of my experience, because you should always try and find the good in the world. To get into this playthrough, I knew nothing about this game, so I figured I'd lean on some friends who have played it before, just to get an idea as to what I should expect after 100 hours. In other words, what do I need to have completed after 100 hours so that the RuneScape community doesn't hate me? And here's what they came up with.
Number 1, complete the quest Dragon Slayer. It's a free-to-play quest, everyone does it, this is easy. Number 2, shoot for level 43 prayer, because this is the level that unlocks all 3 of the protection prayers, which are going to be necessary for the rest of your account. Number 3, in 100 hours you could probably try for a Barrows kill, with a spell known as Ivan's Blast, which you get from the Underground Pass quest. This would be a really good endpoint. Number 4, shoot for base 40s, meaning that you have at least level 40 in every skill. And number 5, you could potentially go for a Fire Cape. That would be the perfect ending, to be honest, but again, in 100 hours as a new player, that might not be possible. And also, I encourage you to buy a girlfriend for 10,000 GP.
I can only imagine what a girlfriend in RuneScape looks like. Idol, on the other hand, told me to do the recipe for disaster quest, whatever that is. And as for Twitter, well, there's a reason I hate Twitter. Either way, it was time to start my journey. So after downloading and installing the jagex client, which comes with RuneLite, and creating a new account, I was ready to go. Although apparently without membership, there wasn't too many servers to choose from. So yes, the first hurdle was trying to find a free server. Eventually, I figured out it was any that was silver. I apologize in advance as to how much of a noob I'm going to sound throughout this video. But anyway, I chose lucky number 301 and I was ready to create my character. I just want to point out as well, I started playing this back in 2024. That's how long I've been trying to put a decent RuneScape video together for you guys to watch. So please like and subscribe to my dead and irrelevant channel. As far as first impressions go, I was quite impressed with how much you could actually customize your character. It seemed to have more options than New World.
Oi, don't say that. That's not true. That's not true.
There was even an option to select your pronouns, as well as choosing your body type, whether it's A or B. I can already picture how much praise this would have got when it was first introduced.
Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Fucking pronouns! Ha! Gay! Fucking gender ambiguity!
I am not gay.
Fucking current day Californian shit!
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
So this is my character Plob. He has green hair and goes by the pronouns they, them. Body type A, even though I'm pretty sure there's no sex skill. And if you really want to know where my horse is in this race, I want body type C, so I can be chubby, a fat, bloated mess. I want to be like a small dwarf who's fat and bloated. But no, I can't have that, can I? Fuck it, immersion ruined, I'm done, I'm gone.
A few moments later.
Listen, we've got a lot to get through, so I'm not going to bore you with the ins and outs of Tutorial Island. So here's a quick summary. Fishing, chopping trees, start a fire, cook shrimp, blacksmithing, kill some rats, become Ironman. So there I was, on the main island, ready to start my adventure. And I'll be honest, I had no idea what to do next. I was just there, in the moment, living and breathing RuneScape.
Anybody! Help! Help!
So I went for a wander around Lumbridge Castle, and somehow ended up fighting rats. Ah yes, my first dopamine hit of numbers go up. So naturally, after killing one rat, I went and killed another one. And then I killed again, and again, and again. This went on for a little while. I don't actually know why I decided to kill so many rats. I just saw my attack go up and I thought, well, maybe this is what the game is. Maybe this is a rat killing simulator. I did decide to go and do something else after a little while, but yeah, my first 5 minutes was basically attacking rats. I eventually made my way inside the castle, which is when I picked up my very first quest. Was it to slay 20 goblins? Perhaps save a damsel in distress? No, it was something better than that. It was to bake a freaking cake. It was at this moment I realised I had a sword and shield I could equip. I'm not quite sure why I kicked the shit out of so many rats with my bare hands, but I did. But anyway, off I went on my very first adventure. There's a lot going on in Lumbridge town, and it was quite confusing as to who were NPCs and who were actually players. Either way though, the game seemed pretty popular and populated. I started exploring the surroundings just to see what else there was to do and perhaps if there's any other quests I could pick up. It was during this adventuring I was savagely attacked by a bandit, but luckily for me, due to all the experience I'd gained from punching rats to death, he was no match for me. They also dropped a jazzy looking cloak, which I put on straight away, and I could tell this bit of attire would make me stand out from all the other noobs playing RuneScape.
Yes, it's a lovely fit, very nice.
My travels took me to Draenor village and it was just as busy as Lumbridge. It had a bank, a marketplace, and of course the customary person creating 100 different campfires. However, I still had a task to do. So I used the one magical spell I seemed to have, which was the fast travel back to Lumbridge. I needed a bucket and a pot to collect flour and milk, which I got from the general store. On my way to get the other ingredients, I actually killed a goblin who dropped a chef's hat. It seemed more than appropriate to wear it at this point. I then proceeded to milk a cow, grind up some flour, and of course, collect an egg. With all my ingredients in hand, I headed back to the chef to complete the quest. On paper, I thought this quest was quite mundane, but looking back at it, it was a nice introduction as to what was to come. The questing in old school RuneScape is actually quite complex. There's no arrow telling you where to go, there's no waypoint to follow. It's a case of reading what's in front of you and putting 2 and 2 together. With one quest down, I was excited to jump on to the next one. Although unknown to me, I was about to learn a very harsh truth about old school RuneScape. I sat there looking at the map thinking, wow, there's a lot to go and explore, and look at all these quests. Although there's one slight caveat to everything on this map. I was 5 hours in and starting to get to grips with the game. I was doing a lot more exploring and picking up quests. I was accumulating wealth and items, and even had the pleasure of taking part in a few mini games, which were fun and rewarding. But there was something that became abundantly clear very early on. Without sounding too dramatic, everything seems to require membership. It was a constant barragement of seeing something cool and just being locked out because I'm cheap. But I was committed to seeing how far I could get with a free account. And if anything, it makes me want to do a second playthrough with membership to see how much I might have missed out on. So with that in mind, if this video gets 2,069 likes, I'll do a part 2 of my 100-hour playthrough with membership. But for now, I was going to do it the hard way and play for free. From my experience, one of the most boring parts about an MMO is the questing. They're usually really long-winded, there's loads of fetch quests, and there's usually cutscenes which just go on forever. I have never been so wrong in all my life. Introducing the most boring thing in any game ever, mining. Being an Ironman meant I had to be self-sufficient and craft a lot of items and gear for myself. To begin with, I was okay with this. Numbers went up, I got a dopamine hit, and I had some cool shiny armor at the end of it. But as I progressed, it became one of the biggest time sinks this game has to offer. The limited inventory space means you can only carry so much ore, and on top of that, when you do smelt bars, they're not always guaranteed to work. And I felt like this after 5 hours, wait until I hit the 100-hour mark and how I truly felt about mining in this game. But for now, it was a way to craft cheap gear and also make some quick gold. And I did find myself doing this for hours at a time. I did, however, try to break the monotony by just finding other stuff to do and other things to kill, or by doing a little bit of fishing and cooking. And on one occasion, whilst I was exploring, I was approached by 2 men with flags, who then began to follow me. My initial reaction was to ignore them because I thought they were NPCs, but to my surprise, they were actual players. So I stopped to talk to them to see what they wanted. Turns out, they were just recruiting for their guild, so I joined. I'll be honest, as an Ironman, I don't even know what difference this would make. Can I even join a guild? I asked them a bunch of questions, and then they gave me a tour of their guild house. I was amazed because up until 5 minutes ago, I didn't even know there were guilds, yet alone housing. The guild house had free beer, a boxing ring, and most importantly, a piano. I know this game is an MMO, but my only social interactions so far were watching people try and do giveaways or begging people to go watch their Twitch channel. If anything, I felt regret for choosing to be a Ironman because it almost felt like I'd excluded myself from interacting with other people because of it. What I found truly amazing about this game is that it's probably got one of the highest MMO populations, and yet whilst playing it, I did feel like the most loneliest person in the world. Maybe I was playing it wrong. I started to focus on becoming a miner. No, not that kind. Because logically thinking, if I can craft myself the best armor and weapons, then everything else should be a doddle, right? So I found the land of the dwarves and bought the best pickaxe I could use at the time, and then headed towards Varrock because I saw a spot which would be good for miners. Not that kind, Jesus Christ. Before heading over though, I took a slight detour to go and get my hair cut. I actually really like the fact that you're able to customize your character after you create them. A lot of games tend to charge money for this, so kudos, good job. Ironically, it wouldn't be till much later on that I realised that Falador is actually probably one of the better mining spots, but hey, you know what you know. It was on my way to Varrock that I actually made a crucial mistake, and that was being overconfident due to probably my new haircut. And I decided to attack a level 13 fire wizard. From what I could tell, it was going quite well. I'm not quite sure why I chose a pickaxe as my main weapon, and then all of a sudden it went from me being on top to me roaching out. Up until this point I hadn't died in the game, and I wasn't prepared to find out what happens when you do die. But unfortunately that wasn't a decision for me to make. So after 10 hours I officially had clocked up 1 death, which to be honest wasn't that punishing. I was expecting to lose some skill or XP, but all I had to do was run back and collect my items. I'm sure if I had died in a less forgiving area this would be a bit of a ball ache, but luckily I'm a noob, so yeah, wasn't the end of the world. So I brushed myself off and got back to the important stuff, the stuff that matters.
Whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam. Whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam. Black Betty had a job, bam-a-lam. The damn thing gone wild, bam-a-lam. She's gonna burn up her mind, bam-a-lam. The damn thing gone blind, bam-a-lam. Whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam. Whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam.
Mining as a skill just isn't fun, and it's for multiple reasons. But one of the biggest contributors to the reason that this is so tedious is the fact that any spot I went to was just flooded with bots who were just quicker to the mark than me, which meant it made mining 10 times longer than it needed to be. But unless I was going to pay for membership, I saw no other choice but just to persevere.
Whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam. Whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam. She really gets me high, bam-a-lam. You know that's no lie, bam-a-lam. She's so rock steady, bam-a-lam. And she's always ready, bam-a-lam. Whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam. Whoa, Black Betty, bam-a-lam.
Despite the setbacks though, I made a good amount of gold and managed to kit myself out in some good armor, and by the end of it, I'd leveled up quite a bit. However, I couldn't help but feel that this wasn't done in the most optimized way. Believe it or not, I don't spend my whole time just mining. Instead, what I actually did was a bit of questing, and I have to say, it was actually pretty good. And what made it stand out, you might be wondering? Well, it was simply the fact that it didn't hold my hand, and even the ones that were basically fetch quests, they still required some level of intelligence for you to be able to complete them. For instance, one quest in particular had goblins fighting over what colour armour they should have, and I had to basically go and dye the armour and see if they liked it or not. It sounds quite straightforward, but they asked for colours where you actually had to mix 2 different colours together to make the appropriate dye. Now, nowhere does it tell you to actually do this in the quest, you kind of just have to figure it out for yourself. And don't get me wrong, you don't have to be some sort of Einstein to understand that if you mix red and yellow together, it will make orange. But it was just refreshing and appreciative that they actually made me have to use a couple of brain cells to figure it out, as opposed to the usual slop that you get in MMOs, where you just run back and forth and skip through the text. There's also a few different quirky quests, like one with Romeo and Juliet, but in the end, Romeo is a bit of a slag.
I didn't become a little bit of a slag. I became a total slag.
And there were quests which were a bit more long-winded, such as collecting the 4 different coloured beads from the little demons that you see running around the place. I can imagine if you weren't doing Ironman, you would just buy these, but you know, I had to actually grind this out a little bit, and it was fun to do so. And one of my favourite quests was in the Haunted House, where they did a parody of the movie Scream, which at the time was probably pretty cutting edge, but looking at it now, 20 years on, it's probably lost on a lot of Gen Zs, which is funny because to me it's such a classic reference, and yet it just goes to prove that time really does come for all of us. Don't get me wrong though, they weren't all perfect. Being an Ironman actually prevented me from completing a quest. Well, I assume that's why, because I wasn't able to get 2 halves of a shield. I'm assuming you have to work together with another player in order to complete this quest. One of the quests even took me to an island, which was all well and great, apart from the fact that I can only access 10% of it. The other 90% was locked behind membership. The good thing about questing was that it did send me all over the map, which meant I got to socialise a bit more with other people. And by socialise, I mean lurk in area chat to see what people were talking about. And it was always interesting. After 36 hours, these were my stats. I don't know if they're good, I don't know if they're bad, all I know is that I've been working hard.
Fast as fuck, boys.
And show us a passage of time. We're gonna need a montage. Ooh, it takes a montage. Show a lot of things happening at once. Remind everyone of what's going on. And with every shot, show a little improvement. To show it raw would take too long. That's called a montage. Girl, we want a montage. And anything if you want to go from just a beginner to a pro, you need a montage. Even Rocky had a montage. Always fade out in a montage.
I had been churning through the quests at this point. I was eager to do as many as possible, considering so many were locked behind membership. But not only that, I had been keeping up with my mining and also doing a lot of fishing, which would also mean cooking. I had even gone as far as to play RuneScape on my mobile phone. I'm not proud of that fact, but it is indeed a fact. I was even in hospital on a drip and I found myself playing RuneScape. I'm sorry, that's a really bad joke. I wasn't on a drip, someone else was. I'm fine. I even lived up to the meme of it being a second monitor game. And all of it was catapult me towards one last quest. The main quest. The quest that would make or break me as a RuneScape player.
I thought you were going to give me a quest.
Alright, I'll give you a quest. I'll let you wear my rune plate mail if ye slay the dragon of Crandor.
I was finally ready to undertake the Dragon Slayer 1 quest, arguably the hardest free-to-play quest that you can do. But what makes this quest so difficult, you might be wondering? Well, there's several factors. It is recommended you be combat level 45. It's recommended that you have level 33 magic, otherwise it's going to cost you money. It's recommended to be high level in prayer, you can have some protection spells, and it's recommended you have fast travel unlocked because there's a lot of travel involved. So would I slay the dragon within 100 hours, or will this quest be the straw that breaks this camel's back? Technically, this is one quest, but it is broken down into several sections because there's 3 parts of a map you need to get, as well as finding a ship. Oh, and then there's defeating the dragon. So, realistically, it's 5 quests, all just as tedious as the next one. Okay, technically 4 tedious quests, because getting the shield was just literally going up to some guy and saying, "Can I have a shield?" And he was like, "Yeah." The rest don't. The rest are a ball ache. First up, we have Melzar's Maze. At first glance, it seems quite easy. There's a bunch of doors, you need to find a key for the doors, and subsequently, a monster on each level of the maze will drop that key. And as you progress through the maze, it gets progressively harder. You start off with rats, then go to ghosts, and then to skeletons, and then to zombies, then Melzar himself, and then a demon. I mean, you would do if you take the right door, which I didn't, but seeing as he was level 82 and I'd used up all my food just to get to this point, it's very unlikely I'd win that fight anyway. So I looked at the next mini quest to unlock part of the map, which is basically to get the map off a goblin who stole it off some woman. There was just one caveat to it, which was the goblin was in jail and he wanted 10 grand gold in exchange for the map piece. Sadly, you can't kill him through the bars, but when you do attack him, he does drop the map, which made me think, what if I could just reach in and grab that? And would you believe it, there's a spell called Telekinetic Grab which lets you do just that. I, however, was like level 11 in magic, so yeah, I needed to grind up my magic. Which meant spending my hard-earned gold on runes so that I can cast spells and get my magic experience. And before you ask, and I know it's going to come up, how much did you spend on runes? The simple answer is a lot more than 10k gold, which would have got me the map. So, I know what you're thinking. Am I slightly regarded? Potentially. But I figured if I learn magic, it might come in useful later. So off I went to do more mining so I could make more money, so I could buy more runes, so I could level up magic. What a game.
One eternity later.
I'm happy to say though, after much perseverance, I hit level 33 in magic. The only issue was, I needed a lore rune in order to cast a spell, and you can't just buy those from the shop. I used my YouTube connections and spoke to Waydot, who suggested I go kill some dark wizards outside Varrock. So, off I went for another grind. I'm not exactly sure how long it took me to grind these to actually get the lore rune, but once it did drop, it was a big relief. The good thing was, after all the hours I put into fishing, it was paying off now in later game, because the fish I was catching and cooking actually gave back quite a lot of HP. But anyway, with the rune secure, I had to go talk to a goblin about a map. And I'm happy to say I was able to yoink the map with no issues. With one piece down, I headed back to Melzar's Maze. Slight side note, not that it's too important, but I just felt like it's worth mentioning. It did take me about 70 hours into the game for me to figure out that I can actually organise my bank and make it look really nice and jazzy. So I just wanted to mention that because I actually really like this feature. I just felt like I needed to have a part of the video where I give praise to this ingenuity. So I stocked up my inventory with fish and I headed back to Melzar's Maze. It didn't take me too long to get back to the lesser demon, and I probably used up more fish than I wanted to get there, but I was ready to take him on. Although he pretty much jumped me from the start, so I wasn't as best prepared as I could be. There were two quick lessons. Number one, this thing hits hard, and number two, I don't seem to be hitting it as hard back. I thought kiting it around the room might somehow help, and it really didn't, so I kind of decided to try and run away. It was at this point I realised it de-aggroed and it seemed to get stuck on the door. So like the brave hero I am, I thought I'd try and hit it with a bow and see if it would stay stuck in place. And it worked. Unfortunately though, I was doing noodle damage. My bow wasn't high level, I didn't have high range attack, so I needed to rethink this. But it looked like there was potential to maybe scam the game and beat the demon by just cheesing it basically. Because going face to face, blow for blow of it, just didn't seem like a good option. So with that in mind, I went back to the grind and I leveled up my range attacks. The things I do for a YouTube video. Honestly. I was ready for round 2. I had stocked up on pie, which I'd recently made. I had a new bow, and I also had mithril and steel arrows. I powered through the maze until eventually I was at Melazar, which wasn't really too much of a challenge, but I still had to use a couple of fish. I headed through the purple door. The demon was practically right in front of me, so I equipped my bow and I took my first shot. It missed. But I didn't give up and I carried on fighting the beast. Just like before, he retreated into his corner and got stuck. So I began peppering him with arrows because surely one of these will land. I'd spent so much time doing this grind, it had to work, it just had to. He started to retreat, so I chased him with my sword and went blow for blow. At this point, not even my sword was able to inflict damage on him, until eventually I saw something positive. I had done damage, and if it bleeds, we can kill him. This was going to be a battle of endurance, a battle of nutrition, because I was going through fish and eventually I'll be eating pie, and I only had so much that I could eat. I stood there for what seemed like an age, trying my best to slay the spawn of Satan. This demon was relentless. He wasn't holding back. He was happily destroying me. And the problem was, the longer I stood there, the more likely I was going to hit pie territory. When the pie started to be eaten, I knew I was in trouble. He wasn't even on half health. So I retreated back to the corner, and I thought I could only do one thing, which was to try and use the bow again. He once again stopped attacking me, and I just thought, what if he got stuck in a corner and I could just hit him with the sword? So that's what I tried to do. But unfortunately, it didn't work. He just kept hitting me back, and I was once again in a battle for my life, stood there going blow for blow with a demon. And then it happened. I got down to my last pie. I had come too far to roach out, so I was left with no other choice but to try and use the bow again. It took 6 whole arrows before I eventually hit him, and then I knew there was a chance I could defeat him. This went on for what seemed like an eternity, and I had limited arrows, but luckily he would eventually walk off, and I'd be able to go collect the arrows and would start all over again. But his health was going down. That was the main thing. I found it kind of ironic that even the combat in this game had turned into a grind. But I was determined, and through the power of cheese, I eventually defeated the demon. And with that, I had 2 parts of the map with only 1 left to get. Surely it wouldn't be that hard. The map's behind a door below, but entering is rather tough. This is what you need to know. You must use the following stuff. First, a drink used by a mage. Next, some worm string changed to sheet. Then a small crustacean cage. Last, a bowl that's not seen heat. My brother in Christ, I said I'd play for 100 hours. I don't have an extra 100 hours to try and solve your fucking riddle. I am at my wit's end. So I used the wiki to find the answer. I'm sorry. I broke a rule. I'm sorry. It sucks that I had to do this, but my brain just wasn't working. I probably could have figured it out. I just didn't want to. So sue me. I used the wiki, but I had to. Okay, I just had to. And with that, I had all pieces of the map, and I just needed a ship. Now, the ship is a funny story. There's a boat in port that you can buy, which isn't a problem. It costs like 2,000 gold. However, it needs repairs, which requires 3 planks and 90 steel nails, which is very straightforward. So I thought, it soon became apparent that the planks are kind of hard to get hold of. Unless you have membership, then it's dead easy, which I didn't have, and I wasn't going to break that rule just yet. As a free-to-play Ironman, the best way to get a plank was to open up some elaborate lockbox or ornate lockbox, or go to the wilderness, which is a free-for-all PvP zone where you drop all your loot when you're killed. So naturally, I opted for the trying to open up the lockboxes, which can be found in the Camdozal Vault, I believe it's called, which requires you to harvest 750 baronite shards to go into the vault for a whole minute, where you can run through, grab the box and run out, but you only have a minute, okay? So if you fail in that minute, you get nothing.
So you get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
Turns out, it takes a while to actually harvest the baronite shards, and even then, the drop rate on these planks and these boxes wasn't great. So after 4 failed runs and a lot of time, I had to go to the wilderness. And do you know what? It took me a whole 30 seconds to get the planks in the wilderness. So I wasted so much time for something so stupid. Oh, and just to add to the story, after I got the planks, I thought I'd go check out the wilderness because it is PvP, which is technically endgame, and I got followed out by some sweat, who proceeded to kill me even though I was naked and clearly had nothing on me, and I was a low level. So yes, overall, great experience. Super loved that. Long story short, I was ready to face the dragon with 10 hours left to do so. And here's how it went. It was finally time to sail to Crandor and defeat the dragon, so I stocked up on salmon and head towards my boat, the Lady Lumbridge. She was now seaworthy, and me, my captain and first mate headed off. During the voyage, we ran into a bit of a storm. And it was during the storm that our worst nightmares became a reality. We were attacked by the dragon. The boat was on fire, there were casualties, there was panic. We had become shipwrecked on Crandor, which meant one thing and one thing only. There was no turning back. I scavenged some planks and made my way to the centre of the island. It didn't take long before I was in the belly of the beast. I had trained nearly 100 hours for this fight, and it left questions and doubts in my mind. Would I be ready? Had I done enough? I hopped over a wall, which signalled the start of the fight. So, fun fact, turns out the dragon shield isn't a suggestion, it's pretty much a necessity. I kind of forgot to equip it. Okay, I was ready for round 2 of the dragon. I made some slight adjustments. For one, I changed my headgear so it had more magic resistance. I also equipped the shield, and I actually went fishing for lobster because it gives you back more HP. And before jumping the wall to face off the dragon, I also activated a prayer. And would you look at that, I didn't die on the first hit. I was now face to face with the beast. Everything I trained for came down to this one moment. And boy, did he hit hard. Unlike the lesser demon, I seemed to be landing more hits and I was absorbing more damage, and I had a shit ton more lobsters to eat. I wasn't sure how to attack it. Should I be defensive? Should I be aggressive? I even didn't have a chance to move around and try and find if there's a cheese spot. I was just too involved in the fight. The issue is, I came into this fight with no plan B. Plan A was simply to stand there and fight the dragon. Yes, I would eat lobster whilst doing so, but it wasn't the best strategy. I had run out of prayers and I was rapidly running out of lobster. For a game with such simple combat, I can't tell you how tense this felt. I was down to my last 3 lobsters. There was no turning back. It was either make or break. I had no control over what would happen next. All I could do was hover over my food supply and just hope it would last to the end. But it didn't, and I was left at the mercy of the RNG gods. I had full health and all I needed was one good hit and it'll be over. And with every stroke of my sword, I missed, and my health was getting lower and lower and lower. And just like that, I had completed the Dragon Slayer quest. I had finally achieved 100 hours and I felt like I'd accomplished some key milestones. Finishing the Dragon Slayer quest meant I could now officially wear runeplate armor. Not that I could afford it, but I could wear it. I had a bunch of skills which were rank 40 or above, and because my overall player level was over 500, I could play on the server which basically has no bots. But the real question is, did I enjoy my time playing? Now, I'm going to be honest. When I first started, I couldn't stand this game. I didn't understand the draw towards it. It wasn't until after about 20 hours that I started to get more involved in the game. And I have regrets about not having membership and also avoiding the wiki for so long. Don't get me wrong, it was refreshing to play a game with no one holding my hand, but that wiki could potentially save me a lot of time. The small taste of PvP I had, as much as it annoyed me, it was quite thrilling and I do want to do more PvP. I just simply haven't the gear to do it. I can't even craft a full set of steel armor yet, and I had to buy mithril armor from the store. In regards to my Steam review, this is what I had to say. Played over 100 hours and I would gladly do it again. Make sure you download the RuneScape client and have a good back catalogue of YouTube videos to watch on your second monitor. Be careful of the wilderness. I got killed by someone called Low. They have no honour. It might be a second monitor game, but it is number one to my heart. And as I said earlier, if you want me to play another 100 hours, but this time with membership, then make sure you get this video to 2,069 likes. Please, for the love of God, do leave a like. It took me over 100 hours to make this video. And if you do want to help support my channel, by all means become a YouTube member or a Patreon member. They get special benefits, which I'm sure it says it somewhere. But anyway, with that, I'm going to end the video there, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.